What's up? My name is Wayne Morgan. I work with the National Network of Youth Ministries, and I am excited to share with you on the online format my breakout session called Your Church is Too Small to Change the World. A little bit about myself. Been married for 20 years, been in youth ministry a little over 20 years. This is my family, so by now I've not only studied youth ministry, but now I have teenagers, so I better know what I'm talking about at this point in time in my life. At National Network of Youth Ministries, one of the things we believe is that everything is here for a massive revival. It's simply a matter of connecting the dots. And so, a lot of the time when we were working in our churches, we feel like we're so alone, we're so isolated. And we want you to know that you are not alone. And I think that's what Jesus really intended. Check out this verse, John chapter 17. He says, Jesus is praying, and he says, I'm not praying for these disciples, but also for the ones who believe in me and in their message. I pray that they will all be one, just as you and I are one. You and me, Father, and I and you, that they may be one, so that the world would believe you sent me. You see, we believe that everything is in a community for hope to occur. And we have seen this with COVID. We've seen this with the decentralization of ministry. A lot of the time we feel like we are the only solution to what's going on in our world. You'll see in this circle that we are wanting us to think a little bit broader, a little bit bigger about who has the ability to effectively lead students. There are a lot more people who are leading students than we recognize. When we start thinking about how we can start networking and working together, there's a few things that we have to overcome in our own lives in order to do that. There's a couple personal hurdles that we need to go over. One of the things is we have to stop coveting other people's ministries. In this time of COVID, it's been really, really interesting to watch people go into the online forum, and some people are hesitant to do it because they don't have the bandwidth or they don't have the know-how. And a lot of us are instead of advancing and asking questions, we're just seeing what other people are doing and feeling sad that our own ministry is not accomplishing the things that other people's ministries are accomplishing. Another thing that we have to do is we have to recognize the insecurity of other ministries. I don't know if you know this, but you're a rock star at something. You have the ability to do something no one else has. God has designed you for excellence and unbelievable ability to do something that intimidates other ministries. Yes, I know. You're at a small church, so you definitely couldn't be an intimidation factor for anything. No, that's not 100% true. You might have a relational connection with your students and the people you serve at a higher level than even some of the executive pastors of large churches in the area. So I want you not just to recognize that you have insufficiencies, but you have to recognize that other people, they don't feel like they have it all together. And sometimes the thing that we're most proud about is also the thing that we're most insecure about. And so when we walk into a networking, when we start building bridges, we have to recognize that we are insecure about something, but we also have to recognize that other people have insecurities as well. If we don't recognize that, then we could be missing doors of opportunity to connect with one another. Another thing that we see that is we have to understand our strengths. Not only do we have to understand our weaknesses, we've got to recognize that our strengths may cause insecurity in other people, but what's your strength? What do you offer to the body of Christ? Maybe you have the ability to care. Maybe you're called to pray on other people's behalves. Maybe you have the ability to organize and administrate stuff. Maybe you have this leadership ability. You don't know why people follow you, but people are following you. Maybe you have the ability to come up with creative things. I'm working with a network of guys and gals up in Northeast Pennsylvania. We call ourselves, during COVID, we called ourselves this 4NEPA. The beauty about working together with this team of people is that each of us is strong in a certain area, and some of us are insecure in other areas. And the awesome part is all of us are working in our strengths and in our weaknesses, and we're literally lifting everybody up. Another thing that we all have to recognize is that we have to understand who we are. So maybe you've never jumped into some of these resources. There's stuff called the Myers-Briggs. Myers-Briggs is personality development. Maybe some of you are familiar with Enneagram. It was really big a little while ago. Maybe some of you are understanding Strengths Finders. Strengths Finders, it advocates that you lean into what you're really good at and kind of push the stuff that you're not good at into somebody else's lane so that they can run with it. So if you're poor at administration, maybe find somebody that's amazing at administration and hand those tasks off to those people. And so in order for you to start branching out beyond you being the solo leader, you've got to understand strengths and weaknesses. And another one that I think is really, really fun is the 5 love languages. I encourage people to do this because it isn't just for marriage, right? You have to feel appreciated, and each person around you has a different way of feeling and understanding appreciation. Now I know during COVID, instead of being the 5 love languages, it's the 4 love languages because physical touch is not a thing anymore. But I want to encourage you, what are your strengths? Find out what it is that refuels you. Because if you aren't sure about how God has wired you, a lot of the time the things that we're coveting the most are other people's personalities. Don't we do that? We covet other people's callings, and if we could just be as cool as Jimmy Fallon, or if we could just be as inspiring as your favorite preacher, but all of those actions are built out of a personality. I want to encourage you, discover who you are, discover who it is that God has created you to be, and in doing so, you won't just be more aware of how you can lean into other people, but you're more aware of yourself, your own deficits, and your own need for other people. And if you have any other resources or any other ideas for helping to do self-evaluation, I'm always looking for things that will help people discover who God has created them to be. So as an Enneagram 7, I'd love to find out new things and try them all out. So for any of you who think the Enneagram is not okay, I'm sorry I just offended you. The next thing I want to hit when we start talking about networking is I want you to realize that there aren't just personal hurdles that we have to overcome, but there are literal philosophical hurdles. For some of you, you have a philosophy of go-to people. If you're that way, a lot of us are considered to be missions oriented, right? Go into all the world. We're going, going, going. And so Campus Crusade, Young Life, Youth for Christ, the mantra of those organizations is to go where people are. Go where kids at. Youth Alive is also go where students are. Engage in their world. But some of us have a different personality. If we feel like if we just create the best environment, then people will come to us. What's your discipleship philosophy? Is it closer to Field of Dreams, or is it closer to Band of Brothers? Field of Dreams is like mystic, and it's really cool, and it's visionary, and then people come out of the woodwork to be a part of it. And if you're too young to know what that movie is, go ahead and rent it. It's a baseball movie, so but like the philosophy is there. The Band of Brothers is a little bit different. The Band of Brothers is really kind of raw. It's discouraging, it's ugly, it's gritty, it's gross, it's vulgar. The reality of discipleship can be really seen the difference between those two movies. And so know that these two philosophies don't necessarily walk hand in hand really well. And so you've got to recognize there are philosophical differences when you come together with other youth ministry organizations. There's philosophically things that you will not see eye to eye with, and you got to be okay with that. Another thing that we need to realize is that when we come together, a lot of the time we have asked questions that we ourselves can handle. My encouragement for you to, when you start to network, start asking bigger questions. Start asking questions that are so difficult that you really can't answer it by yourself. I was a part of a forum in Luzerne County, Pennsylvania, that allowed us to ask those questions. This was called the Youth Aid Panel. What was recognized is that school districts were losing the ability to take their students and to discipline them, so they started arresting students. Now, that seemed to be a good idea until kids that were basically good kids started going to college and being not allowed to go into colleges because they have a criminal record. One of the students that we had in our restorative justice panel literally released rats in his high school as a senior prank and was arrested for it. So think about that. There was an unintended consequence. There was something that no one really had the answer to. And so the county started asking questions and they started saying, hey, how can we help these students with bigger issues than any of us have the capacity to do? And they started looking and researching, and as a think tank, they brought people together and said, how can we do this together? How can we better work together in order to reach a group of people and to help a group of people that couldn't normally be helped by us. So being able to ask bigger questions is essential when you start to network. Other thing that we need to realize is we need to find areas to collaborate versus find areas to control. A lot of you are terrible with networking because you feel like you're losing control. You're losing control of the facility. You're losing control of where your kids are. You're losing control of whether your kids like the youth pastor that you're going to put on stage more than you. You know, there's so many areas where we lose control. But when we start to collaborate, we start to let go of control, and we actually have to trust the Holy Spirit. I know. You're a pro at trusting the Holy Spirit. You are in ministry and you have no problem saying, God, I know that you're calling me to do this. It's really, really scary, but I'm going to get out of the boat. Really? Most of us have the capacity to do things that we want to control, but we don't want to jump into the area where we have to collaborate. The next area that we need to think through is philosophical hurdles. A lot of the times we use church language instead of being understood. You as a pastor are using words that are not used in regular society, right? You're talking about salvation, you're talking about redemption, you're talking about reconciliation. All of those are great words to use, but sometimes the philosophical hurdles, as soon as you use a Christian word, it throws up the red flags for any collaboration. Some of you have theological words that instantly get people mad. You might have been in a room where somebody starts talking reformed theology, or maybe going to an extreme on the band of evangelicalism. Maybe you've been in a room where somebody has accused you of being evangelical and you didn't even know that that was a bad term, but instantly from the tone, you knew that you weren't in a good space. Reality is, it's using language that all of us can have the ability to collaborate upon. I know none of you have ever been in an argument with your spouse where you have just used the wrong tone or used the wrong word in a conversation and it blew things up. When we walk into the area of starting to collaborate, we have to be intentional about our language. We have to be intentional about trying to figure out how we can collaborate. As a former staff member of Youth for Christ, one of the things that I recognized very soon in my ministry was that not everybody liked the idea of being saved, especially those who had never been to church. But some even church organizations really bristled about those terminology saved. So I changed my terminology to being a Jesus follower. It's measurable, it's tangible. You have the ability to say this is something that we're doing, and it's helpful in that context to say I'm a Jesus follower, and you can even say that around non-believers, and it causes a little bit more conversation. Where the word saved, sometimes that throws up a red flag and nobody wants to talk to you because you're one of those weirdos. The last place I want you to think through when you talk about philosophical hurdles is I want you to understand the levels of partnership. The problem is we've had so many people with their multi-level marketing schemes that it's tainted what networking truly is. I want to introduce you to a concept that I was introduced to from the React group. They came up with 4 levels of partnership. It's called the partnership continuum. The first level of partnership is simply connecting. You've got to get to the place where you're introduced to people that you would not normally interact with. Some of you, it's within your own denomination. You just have not gone to a network meeting at all. You know that there's a group getting together. You're not really sure about the ideas of when it is or where it is. You're not even sure who's leading it. That is your responsibility. Go ahead and find out those things so that you can do the first level of partnering, and it's called connecting. You're more than just Facebook friends. You actually have the ability to know who that person is. There's little relationship that is built in a connecting space other than just a basic connection. And there also is zero expectations on a person when they first start to connect with each other. The next level is cooperating. You know how when you have figured out that there is an event that you could do together, maybe it was something like a music festival or it was outreach to a school. Nobody's asking you for money. It's just that you're walking beside those people. You're in the same venue that those people are, and you have the capacity to run into them. For some of you, that could have been that you were going to a National Day of Prayer event, or you're doing See with the Pole, or there's something that you can cooperating on. The next one is coordinating. There is a commitment that's expected when you are coordinating something together. Your commitment is necessary. It isn't just that you, oh yeah, when I get to it. No, this is something that is so vital. A lot of us in the networking world will only walk in the cooperating and maybe into coordinating. It isn't until you get into the space where a desperate need is pulled up, where you all can agree on that desperate need and you can all say, yeah, we need to do something about this together, that collaboration really happens. The former executive director to National Network of Youth Ministries is in San Diego, California. One year, there was multiple suicides in the school district that they were in. And Daryl's an older guy. He's in his late 60s, and he went to the principal and said, what can we do to help students have a voice with their parents? And the network of youth pastors met with the principal. The need was so overwhelming that what happened is they had an event and a program called What I Wish My Parents Knew. Every single year, parents go to seminars run by students to talk about the stresses of life and what's going on in their world. That started because there was a connection, right? There was a connecting point, and there was cooperation at one point in their history. The coordination was Daryl's responsibility, and then when Daryl started to move this whole organization together, now it's a collaborative effort. It didn't happen overnight. It was something that was very strategically, but necessity was dictating that they needed to work together. I mentioned a little while earlier that we have come together for a collaborative youth group in Northeast Pennsylvania. It started because we had relationship, but this COVID epidemic, we looked around the table and everybody said, man, it's going to take a ton of time for us individually to run these online youth ministry platforms. What if we worked together for this? And huge shout out to Chris McNaney for doing the heavy lifting and bringing everybody together, because he's the one who's actually being the catalyst. He's the one that's coordinating all of the 4 NEPA Live content. So if you have a chance, check it out. So as I throw this slide up on the video right now, what is the deepest level of collaboration, of partnership that you've experienced in your ministry. For some of you, you might feel like you don't even have collaboration within your church ministry. So I want you to think through, what is the deepest level of collaboration that you've seen? What's the deepest level of partnership that you have seen in your current ministry structure? And here's the other thing I want you to do.
Take a second right now and write down.
What are some connecting ways that you have the capacity to lead, that you can start this conversation with other pastors, youth workers, parents? What are some connecting tools and resources that you can do right now? All right, here, why don't you throw something in that you would consider to be a cooperating? Yeah, the other thing I want you to think through is coordinating. What are some coordinating ideas? So throw in some of those that you think this cannot happen without coordination. For some of us, See You at the Pole is that exact thing, where you are coordinating in order to work together. Bible clubs, that's coordinating. And then collaboration. What are some things that you could do to see collaboration occur? For me, one of the things was we started a youth center in the city of Wilkes-Barre. Couldn't have been done with one organization because of the finances and the resources just were not there. There was not a capacity for it. So we needed to collaborate in order to make the youth center happen. Networking isn't just an idea that is in scripture. The reality is we see it even in nature. The largest trees in the United States are the California redwood trees. The tallest tree is nearly 400 feet tall. It's called Hyperion. And these trees are incredible, incredible behemoths of nature. But the one thing that a lot of people don't recognize is their root system is fairly shallow. In order for a tree of this size to grow at the height that it does, it has to literally interweave its roots with the other trees that are there. You see, a redwood cannot grow to the height of Hyperion by itself. The redwood forest is a series of interwoven interconnectedness that is causing those trees stability, and it's causing them strength. It's giving them the ability to thrive even when everything around it is pushing against it. What if our churches weren't supposed to survive as individual cells where we fought for existence by ourselves? What if we were really supposed to be this tight, interconnected network of people who desperately desired God to do a work? Even so desperate that we could cross theological lines. What if we had the capacity right now to start forming these things, but all we need to do is overcome our own personal hurdles in order to link arms with the pastor or youth worker right down the street? Maybe we need to broaden our perspective and start linking arms with teachers and first aid, EMTs. Maybe you need to start linking arms with people who are business owners and that have the capacity to help along the way. And maybe what we do need to do is recognize there will be some philosophical issues that will divide us, but the message of Jesus is way more important than that. In Ecclesiastes, the author writes, "Two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. For if either of them falls, the one will lift up his companion. But woe to the one who falls, and there is not another to lift him up. Furthermore, if two lie down together to keep warm, but how can one keep warm alone? And if one can overpower him who is alone, two can resist him. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly torn apart." Who is in your corner today? Who are the people that you know that you can call out to, that you can just pick up the phone and say, "Hey, I'm really, really struggling in ministry. I'm thinking about giving up. Hey, my budget just got cut and I don't know what to do. I don't even know how to function on a lower budget." Who are those people in your world today? If you don't have them, they might be on the chat with you right now. Maybe you don't know anybody in your area. I would love to be able to reach out to you and find out who I know in your neck of the woods and connect you with some amazing people, because I believe that everything is here for a massive revival. It's simply a matter of connecting the dots. The world is changing, but we're going to figure this out, because Jesus said the gates of hell shall not prevail against his church. Last I checked, gates don't move. So we need to be on the offensive. Even though our world keeps changing and things keep happening, we have the ability to mobilize together, because we aren't just one little rinky dink church. We're a part of a massive international movement with over 2,000 years of history. We are the hope of the world. The church is the hope that no one else can offer. And so I am so excited to be with you. Hopefully, this was an encouragement to you. I'll drop my email right here. Thanks for being a part of this, and hopefully, we're able to connect you a little bit better, because you're not alone. And you are a part of a massive international movement that Jesus started. We're done a few minutes early. Feel free to follow me on social media. I will follow you back. Thank you so much for joining me, and hopefully we will get to meet one day in person.